What the heck happened to Jason Kenney, who short years ago left Parliament, where he had been a star cabinet minister under Stephen Harper, where Kenney had been, in fact, and in perception, a strong conservative in most things, except his open borders immigration, actually, where he had at least a respect for populist conservatism, where he certainly expressed support for religious freedom, the skepticism of big government, and in the early months of the pandemic as premier, that was his approach. And it must have been hard. The entire world, and certainly the entire public health deep state, all the media, all the so-called public health officers, the United Nations, World Health Organization, everything, everyone, all saying mask laws and lockdowns and bans on gatherings and closed the schools and closed churches and closed playgrounds, none of which had ever been tried before, none of which had been proven in an experiment to be useful, none of which could pass any sort of civil liberties test. And he held out for a while, but then when he finally collapsed, he went more abusive than almost anyone else in Canada. I'll never forget when he issued anti-gathering orders, and he had special punitive sections for churches, including funerals, where churches had lower gathering limits than liquor stores or Costco's. Churches were singled out. And as he abandoned any pretense of caring about civil liberties or even science, his language started to track the attack language of Justin Trudeau and Theresa Tam. He started denouncing small business people who wanted to stay open. He started denouncing churches and pastors who not only wanted to exercise their freedom of religion and freedom of association, freedom of assembly, but were critical to helping congregants who had mental stress and anxiety and depression and worse because of the lockdowns. Jason Kenney became so abusive and punitive, it truly was that old dark joke. The beatings will continue until the morale improves. But that's my point about no one being able to tell the emperor that he has no clothes, that he was naked. People mislead billionaires. People mislead dictators for the same reason. There is no one tasked with opposing them and embarrassing them and causing them to rethink things. The old king said jesters for that purpose. Who did Jason Kenney have? He started to believe what he heard. He started to believe what he said. Ralph Klein called that dome syndrome for the dome of the legislature. Preston Manning called that being auto-washed. There were things that happened that if they had happened under the leadership of Justin Trudeau or Rachel Notley as premier, Jason Kenney would have known they were wrong and would have said so. Police brutality against kids on an outdoor skating rink.
Oh shit!
Right now.
Police invading a church during church services. That's insane.
Please get out. Get out of this property. Immediately get out. Get out of this property immediately. Out. I don't want to hear anything. Out of this property immediately. I don't want to hear a word. Out. Out. Out of this property immediately until you come back with a warrant. Out. 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 Out of this property. Immediately out.
Police raiding a diner in a small Alberta town and throwing the businessman in prison. Like the pigs in that book, Animal Farm, it soon became hard to tell the difference between the old regime and the new regime. That boozy party up in the Sky Palace while the little people down below were banned from gathering, banned from going to restaurants, banned. Seriously, if you are the premier who is ordering an entire church be seized, blockaded, and turned into a police outpost, you just might have lost the plot or lost your mind, but certainly lost your principles. If churchmen aren't your thing, they were truckers. All of them peaceful, but denounced by Kenney in language Trudeau used. Kenney didn't just insult the truckers like Trudeau. He lied about them, so much so that the anti-trucker RCMP actually felt they had to correct their record for Kenneys Lies.
I've also received reports in the last hour of people allied with the protesters assaulting RCMP officers.
Unfortunately, it was a relatively minor collision, but a confrontation
which led to an assault that took place as a direct result of that collision.
And that was an assault on an RCMP officer?
No, that was an assault between the two civilians, between a protester and a civilian.
So Jason Kenney's statement was not true at the press release?
I can tell you what I just told you.
Kenney started calling his own citizens, his own party members, extremists.
Premier Jason Kenney says he won't apologize for his comments in a leaked recording, calling members of his political party lunatics. With a vote coming soon on his own leadership, Kenney says the UCP is under siege by extremist elements seeking a hostile takeover.
Kenney said he was done with conservatives. He wanted to keep the party, but change the members. He wanted a new party base. Well, I guess now he's got the chance, doesn't he? It really feels like something Marie Antoinette would say. Your Highness, the citizens are revolting. They most certainly are. The worst to me, of course, was the targeting of Pastor Arthur Pawlowski. Again and again, endless arrests on trumped-up charges, more than 50 days in prison. Exactly the kind of stuff Kenney railed against when he was a federal cabinet minister. And he was talking about China. We put up a lot of billboards about that in Alberta. Thousands of people were deeply concerned. You know, I had a phone call last year from a very senior conservative, I won't say who. You'd know the name immediately, who said, Ezra, you and Rebel News have to stop criticizing Jason Kenney. You're going to lose the election for him. You're going to hand the province back to the NDP. We must stop that. I saw her point a bit. We were covering issues that most of the media weren't. The legacy media hated those Christian pastors if they covered their arrests at all, their prosecutions at all. It was to cheer on the government. Most of the media in Alberta was pressing Kenney from the left. And what do they care? If they could get Kenney to attack Christians and lock down skeptics, that's a win-win-win for them. The media activists on the left punished Christians and locked down skeptics, but Kenney paid the political price for it. It was not like that would win over NDP voters to Kenney. He had both sides of the spectrum hating him. He knew he was in trouble, but like I say, he never knew the true extent. He had too many flatterers around him, I think. His rival from the last leadership race, Brian Jean, ran in a by-election expressly to get rid of Kenney. Kenney was sure that his own loyalist candidate could beat Brian Jean in the nomination. No chance. And even yesterday, Kenney was sure he would crush the party's revolt against him. He certainly seemed to rig the rules to it, switching in the last minute from in-person voting to mail-in voting, which he thought could game the system. Well, I guess he did in the way. 51% is a win. And in the end, though, he knew it wasn't enough.
While 51% of the vote passes the constitutional threshold of a majority, it clearly is not adequate support to continue on as leader. And that is why tonight I have informed the president of the party of my intention to step down as leader of the United Conservative Party. I'm sorry, but friends, I truly believe that we need to move forward united. We need to put the past behind us. And our members, a large number of our members, have asked for an opportunity to clear the air through a leadership election. And I've recommended, therefore, that the provincial board schedule a leadership election in a timely fashion.
Did you see the faces on Sheila and Adam when Kenney said he was resigning? Well, he's not actually gone yet, is he? Still premier, still leader of the party, and I don't know if he's formally ruled out running again, but I think, like Andrew Scheer and Aaron O'Toole, Kenney will be shoved out of the way if he doesn't go quickly and quietly enough. That was an excerpt from my daily TV-style show called The Ezra Levant Show. Each weekday, I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview a fascinating guest. I read some fan mail or hate mail, depends on which I like more, and we end with a video of the day. You can get it all at rebelnewsplus.com.